What's up, you son of a Sith? And welcome to Sith Happens, a Star Wars podcast. I am Eric the Dadalorian, and thank you for joining us today. I am joined, as usual, with a guy whose blue milk typically has a little whiskey in it. He couldn't blast his way out of a trash compactor, and he's the sky to my walker. He is known on Instagram as Black Series Daily Desk. I know him as my boy Matty Ice.
Hello there. I am Matty Ice, otherwise known as Black Series Daily Desk to everybody else on Instagram, and I like to think of myself as the castle to your Inquisitorius.
You know what? That is
I caught you on that one.
That is a great segment into what we're going to talk about today.
That was why I thought of it. It's almost like we plan this periodically.
You know, it is almost something like that, right? So,
Yeah.
And that's just it, man. You know, we're coming off this absolute high of a great May the 4th. I know we both had great celebrations that we went to.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
And then on top of that, we saw Tales of the Empire, which was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Can't wait to get into it and talk about that, honestly.
So good.
And then on top of that, we had some amazing Hasbro drops.
Oh god, yeah. And all the reactions on the internet about them as well. But whew.
Oh yeah.
Did you get all your pre-orders? Did you get all your pre-orders?
I don't do pre-orders typically unless it is one like I really, really need to have. I kind of like that thrill of the hunt in the stores, honestly, typically. Yeah, so fair. Like there's a few in the last year or two where I was like, okay, I'm pre-ordering that one because that's one I have to have.
Yeah, man, there's not many stores out here in the Windy Apple. I could live in Chicago. I could live in New York. You won't know it's the Windy Apple, but there's not many stores in the city. So if I don't get me pre-orders, I pay me lots of money, you know?
No, hey, listen, I get it, brother. So, but yeah, man, I can't wait to talk about Black Series stuff because we had a lot of those. We had some. I know you don't do vintage collection, but I do, and there's a bunch of those that came out that I'm excited about.
I can step away for that portion. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So, pish posh. So, but yeah, man.
Go back.
Yeah, dude. So, but anyways, I am super excited to get into and talk about Tales of the Empire. For those of you who aren't aware, Tales of the Empire, it's kind of like the follow-up to Tales of the Jedi that came out last May the 4th. And this one was fantastic. But before we get into it, this is your spoiler warning. So you're not going to get the full breakdown from me on this one like we typically did with the Bad Batch. I want you guys to get out there and actually watch this because it was fantastic. But we'll start with episode 1 through 3, man, with Morgan Elsbeth's story. We kind of had an idea of what she came from, right? We knew she was a Dathomiri witch prior to working with the Empire and being a magistrate on Corvus. But really, something in that first episode that really caught me off guard and I wasn't aware, maybe I'm just not well versed in it, was the multiple clans on Dathomir.
Yeah, it's not that you're not well versed. There was a holy shit moment for me as well. And I think a lot of what they've done with her that's so cool is bringing more life to Dathomir as a whole.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like, we knew about the Sabrak, the sex colony, and then we know about the Night Sisters. And I think even the revelation, she's always had the little thing up here, a lot of red, lots of clues there. But when we watched the first episode of Ahsoka, and she's like, my sisters or whatever, from ages ago, and then you were like, oh fuck, she's Dathomiri. Get out of here! Yeah. And you kind of saw the hieroglyphics and everything there. It was so cool and such an expansion, bringing that into the real world. And there is that element, I think, always of Clone Wars to live action. That's great with it, where it's kind of like it's real, and go on. Sorry, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say it really did. It brought her into this light that I wasn't expecting. So we knew it was going to be her backstory. We saw it was going to be a younger Morgan. The thing is it actually, like, the thing that I thought was super interesting about it is it showed us a side of Morgan we hadn't seen before. That young and vulnerable version during the attack on Dathomir by the CIS, where they're all just getting slaughtered by Grievous.
Motherfucker, we're fucked now, ain't we?
You are.
I told you, Jake!
Because, in the episode, it cuts to where Grievous kills her mother, and it pretty much like she has to go into hiding, and you see this version of her where she is scared. She's scared out of her mind.
Yep.
You know, we hadn't seen that from her before. And it gave depth to that character because she had not shown that at all in the series prior to that, or and as a character and as a whole.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with her in that Ahsoka episode where she kind of like realized they're leaving her to die. But that was the first real like twinge of emotion. And then like first of all, when you found out she was from Dathomir, your first thought was, okay, how'd you get out of that? So I like that they addressed it. I mean, I would be just as happy to whatever device it, be like, oh, she survived. But seeing how she survived really was great. It again brings out that they're filling in gaps here in ways, and we'll talk about that more with the third Elsbeth episode. But they're filling in gaps here that you don't need them to necessarily be filled. We were talking about this at my May the 4th party. These gaps are getting filled because people just love Star Wars and they're kind of plugging in the holes that, not even necessarily a plot hole, how do you get to point A to point B. But I think seeing that battle was so cool. The thing with her mom's crescent daggers, she does this and they light
badass.
Up as she's getting her ass kicked. They start changing color. It was like a video game, and you're just like, you knew where that was going. But what a great fight. I think the fights have been fantastic in those first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And like, I just think the thing that was interesting about the other sect of the Dathomir was I liked it a lot in the sense that it kind of told you more about the planet and who's on the planet. I don't necessarily feel the whole we don't fight. This is like it didn't matter as much to me, as weird as that is. Like once we got through the battle, I was kind of like, you've shown us this. First of all, one of my favorite Clone War episodes. Is
Easily.
Battle. And that genocide is one of my favorite episodes. But but really, like one of the episodes of Clone Wars I feel always stands out because it's so brutal. Right. And then you go back into that battle and it was very close up. They didn't, waste time by giving you too many other things. They have like a tight 13 minutes to tell this story. And you watch that really awesome battle unfold. And then you kind of like cut to, you needed to know how she got to Corvus. Like you needed to know kind of what that logical next step was there. But I don't necessarily know. To me, it was like, and then she got off world, would have been fine. I was delighted by it, but it was sort of like the first episode started really big for me, and I knew we were in for a treat. But then as she kind of downshifted into that, but they have using your power doesn't mean you're not powerful and all that. Like, it was cool, but for her as a character, I feel that didn't do anything to influence anything we saw after. Right, that woman like taught her a lesson. So to me, it was a little bit the tail end of it was like a little the tail end of Tales of the Empire's first episode was a little bit of not a throwaway. But it's sort of like it really got my appetite up at the beginning, and then there towards the middle and towards the end, I wasn't as into it. But boy, did they! I like the Morgan episodes more than the Barriss episodes, and I really like the Barriss episodes. So
those are going to be fun to talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, like honestly, the stuff with the Morgans, like that first episode with the different sects of the different sect of the Dathomiri was extremely interesting. Just because, up until now, out of everything we've seen from, shows, games, we've always had the idea that the Dathomiri are this very basically violent tribal type of I don't even know the word for it. This very violent tribal being, essentially.
Yeah.
And to see this completely different part of that culture. And it's, the way that, they still have that power was extremely interesting. It didn't do something for the whole story, I don't think, as well.
Yeah.
But it was still very cool to see, in my opinion. So
yeah, I'll give you that. And I think, what's cool about it in my mind is, there's different sides of the track in the galaxy, right? Like, and what it's nice to see, like you said, you see this very violent sort of savage planet, and to know there's different elements to it. And I think that's something that I'm hoping gets explored more as more content comes out, because we're starting to run the clock on what gaps you can fill in between movies, on what you can do to expand on Clone Wars. We've got a significant amount of time in the Dark Time still to cover, and a lot of time outside of what's going on in that Mandoverse coming out of, Jedi. But I would love to see, with what I said earlier, I would love to see more of like, well, you've seen this part of Coruscant. Have you seen this part of Coruscant? Like, is there a small part of Hoth where it's actually, that area is very, very, there's a civilization going on there. And maybe it's an alien species, but they've learned to survive and they've thrived. What are the different things on these planets where you've only gotten to see a small section of it and have a very, your opinion of it is kind of set.
Yeah.
And I think that defying those expectations is important. And yeah, it could make for interesting stories. And, listen, it's a breadcrumb, right? And they love to run us those trails of breadcrumbs. And who knows if we get led back there or one of those characters comes back.
Yeah, and I would be totally okay with that. I thought the episode itself was great. Animation was crisp, just like the last season of the Bad Batch. Overall, it was great. But those last two episodes, I said not the last two episodes of Empire, but Tales of the Empire, but the last two episodes of Morgan's.
Yeah.
So they get into it where she's the magistrate on Corvus now. I would have liked to have seen how she got to there a little bit more.
They allude to it a little bit when they say the other magistrate let her have it, the guy that was in Ahsoka. But yeah, I agree. That would have been an interesting little interjection. Like, how'd she finagle her way to that title, taking it from that guy, or did he lose some kind of an election? Like, I don't necessarily know if I want to watch a lot of politics. I've had enough trade disputes in my day. But but yeah, I would have liked to have seen that more. With that said, the opening of that second episode, where it's the TIE Advanced, or whatever they're called.
I think it's the TIE Defender.
Yeah, the Defender. And that's the beginnings of that. Yeah. That leads you right into Rebels. We're filling in gaps.
I knew you were going to love that. I knew you were going to love that.
Yeah, boy.
Because it opened up right into that. So firstly, they got, pitching the TIE Defender, and it's like that. They're like all the Moffs are like, yeah, too expensive, whatever. And then it cuts to Captain Paleon. And anybody who has read Heir to the Empire know exactly what Paleon means.
Yeah.
So with him coming in, I was really excited. And I think with the fact that we know that an Heir to the Empire series is coming out down the road, movie is coming out down the road, that was a really cool one. And he shows up back in Mando towards the Dark Council scene and everything. But him appearing and being like, yeah, we'll be in touch. And then it cuts to a couple minutes later of her with her battle with Rook, and she is just laying it down.
Yeah, that was, speaking of crispy fights, right?
Yes.
When that just happened, and his weapon in that was preposterous.
When she did her little... like,
it was so good. And Rook, again, felt like mocap, right?
Yeah, it did. So Rook is reading in the into it and everything. Rook is one of the most deadliest operatives that the Empire really had, especially working for Thrawn. And to see Morgan take him down like that and just be just kick his ass was amazing. And with the Beskar spear at that, I would have liked to know how she got the Beskar spear.
Listen, that's just more Morgan story. You know what? Let's do this.
We're saying what we'd
like to have known. It could be a short story somewhere, but yeah, and I mean, I love the way she taps the spear, because that's what she did before she fought Ahsoka, and it was like, that's cool, that's her shtick, and it's
that ring, just you hear that and you know what it is.
Yeah, and everybody in the village is like, oh shit, and then I love that they let her they were like, let's see what happens. We're not going to help her out, and then that whole thing there with she's so opposed by her villagers, but it really shows how with a couple of maybe 20 good gunmen in a village doesn't have a lot of police or a lot of it's not militarized in any way, she really took over, and she has them really, I would venture to guess that she got control of that village by talking about thriving through industry and really almost talking them into indentured servants, right, for a greater good. And then once she had power, why would you need the police? You have me. I'm in charge. I'm the government. I brought these guys in to help you. And it slowly goes south. And then to see their reaction to her almost getting assassinated, it makes her, I think, a very interesting character, because she wants to hurt who hurt her. She has all this hate. Think of it like a Sith. But I think there's a little part of her that thinks it's for the greater good. What her version of the greater good, right? Yeah. And that she's really trying to Thrawn obviously helped her thrive. She's talking about, them all working harder when you get to the third episode to build a better empire, right? Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think she buys into the empire. I think she buys into surviving, and I think that she buys into Thrawn and what Thrawn's talking about.
I think she buys into what gets her end goal, which is that revenge. That hatred that she really has, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it was path to fear, path to anger, path to hate.
I love those titles, by the way.
But that it really parallels her to a Jedi, which I think is fantastic, because the Night Sisters use dark magic.
Yeah.
So it parallels that in, and then the conversation with Thrawn at the end, where why would you, want to essentially like her basically saying like I'm going to do what I need to do, and I think him describing the way that he views the Empire is, it's always the joke. There's no atmosphere in a TIE fighter. They didn't have X-wings because they didn't want to pay for ships with hyperdrive.
Mm-hmm.
All those different things. It's that Thrawn is brilliant, and he's like, this is a great system. However, you got to take a little bit more care of your guys. You got to spend a little money because ultimately you're going to burn people out. Like Thrawn's not a Sith.
No.
Right? The Emperor, it's like him sucking everybody's spirit out is par for the course. He'll deal with that later. He's got the final order off in Exegol, preparing to take everything over in like 40, 50 years anyway, or 30 years at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, but Thrawn's like, no, this needs to be sustainable. And that then alludes to why Thrawn's men were so devoted to him in Ahsoka.
I still to this day, I think Thrawn was the smartest individual in all the Star Wars universe, honestly.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant mind.
But like any smart military mind in Star Wars, you can't beat a spunky Jedi kid who has a couple space whales. Once you get them space whales in,
that's how they get you. That is how they get you.
Guess Ezra didn't paint this. Those space whales didn't paint enough art.
No lie. But in speaking of Jedi and going into that new era, right? That last episode, and this is kind of the thing that like just irks me about like that New Republic area, that arrogance of coming in. We're gonna arrest you. Like, are you dumb?
Yeah, it's this arrogance. It's that they were so impotent, and they felt like they beat this class. Like, first of all, I think it's really funny when you think about somebody once. There was a comic book about Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe, and it was like a what if Cobra Commander took over the world, and all of a sudden he becomes the rebellion against Cobra, because once he took over the world, now you're not fighting anybody for the world. You got to develop infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Like, that sucks. That's boring. You got to figure out everybody's going to get clean water. Like, that wasn't what he was about. He wanted to change the weather. So, it's a similar situation here in reverse, right? We're going to make the galaxy a better place. Well, does everybody want the galaxy to be a better place? These people had power. You're trying to take their power. Your programs to, re-indoctrinate Imperials into the New Republic that don't want to do it. Like, you don't just get to say, hey, the evil is over because you thought it was evil, right? There are people who the Empire saved their entire planet. They volunteered to be stormtroopers. Like, this is great. You learned that in Kenobi, and that was also in other comics and things. So it's that arrogance, that impotence that's like, well, we're the New Republic. It's like, well, see, the Empire didn't just come in and say we're the Empire. Yeah. The Empire burned your village down and shot your leader, and then went, hey, we're the Empire, we're in charge. Yeah. But yeah, that arrogance. But
it had a couple different ways too, because like I'm not sure if you played Battlefront 2, the newer one, Vardos is one of those ones that was a planet that was brought under the Imperial umbrella early on in there, because the one of the big admirals, Admiral Versio, was brought from there, and he basically brought that planet in under, and it basically just flourished under Imperial rule. So it was very different than the way some of the other planets were. So like it does give different views on how the rule was. Yeah. So
and I mean, I think and then like if you look at what they did when the Empire took over, because she was under Thrawn, they still had trees by the time the New Republic got there, right?
That scene was gnarly.
Yeah, well, you know what? Thrawn knew how to, again, what he was talking about, he'll exhaust the people. Take the resources without stripping them, make people feel like they're working for a greater good, or even if they probably didn't at that point, because of her and how she'd been running things prior, but sort of like, keep it status quo enough that people kind of like, what they say in Andor, like, I slept. People are sleeping. They didn't take that much from me. I got a factory job. It sucks. I hate my boss. But, and then now you get the New Republic waltzing in, and she's just like, no, I'm going to burn everything down. I can't have it anymore. Here's the deal. If you told me that I could still be in charge, I'd hate it. Maybe I'd think about it. But if you're going to take it away from me, nobody gets it. And I'll let you lead into it. But that orchestral movement.
Yes. That, like, I got to say, that scene with burning down the forest was just gnarly. I thought it really just was the cap on her becoming the character who she was, that we see coming into Mando and everything like that.
Yeah, walking towards the camera into the fire with the fire behind her. That's
But right before that, we get the distress call.
Yes.
And it goes to Bo-Katan. I I was a little surprised by that. Just because like we know Bo-Katan and Ahsoka have that relationship, and we could lead it to assume that that's how Ahsoka gets to Corvus and everything like that. I was just surprised to see Bo-Katan get that call, just because I did not see them being friendly with the New Republic like that.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe there's more to that background story with
That's kind of what
whatever,
that's
with
kind of what I'm
deadbeats.
wondering. That's what I'm
Yeah,
wondering. Like, what is the story behind that?
and filling in that gap, though, right? Like, we're talking about filling in that gap. It's like, it would be just, it's too easy for it to go to, first of all, when there's hope and you heard the Ahsoka theme, which is my favorite theme in Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
chills and a little bit of tears. I had a few drinks at that point in the day. Really kind of, I was feeling that, which was beautiful. But then I think, yeah, like, it makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, even how did that happen? For Mando to have gotten to Corvus with Grogu,
Mm-hmm.
someone would have had to have known who Ahsoka was. A
Yes.
logical narrative thread would be he needs other Mandalorians. Who's that Mandalorian? Oh, Bo-Katan's still kicking around. So he meets Bo-Katan. You do this for me, I'll do this for you. All right, I know where there's a Jedi. I know where you can find the Jedi. Up until a certain point, and always, I always joke that Bo-Katan, I love Bo-Katan, but I kind of always hated Bo-Katan. For some reason, I was always excited to see her. And then you really hated her, and then you kind of didn't hate her, and you sort of like she's kind of an asshole when you're in Mando at first. And then they kind of brought her full circle.
Interesting arc.
Yeah.
She's had a very interesting arc.
Real toxic girlfriend.
Yes, basically. But yeah, I mean, it's who knows, man. Maybe next year we get Tales of the Mandalorians or something like that. So
I want Tales of the Underworld so badly, and
I know you do.
Yeah, and my I know, and my wife was saying she was reading. A lot of people are saying they're getting a little tired of, which is fair when you go on Reddit, of the clone era, right?
Mm.
There's a lot in the dark times when you get into like Rebels and just what's going on with all that. What about Luke's school? Like, I would love to see Luke's school.
That's
like,
an era that needs to be explored 100%. Because, like, regardless of what people think of the new era of the movies with the sequel trilogy and everything like that, it is still an era leading up to that can be explored, that has a lot of good story to it. So
100%.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
You could call it Fails of the Jedi. That's perfect.
It fails of the Jedi. but yeah, that pretty much wrapped up the episode 1 through 6, and I thought it was great.
Awesome.
Not necessarily the story we needed to understand everything, but it was really great to understand that backstory. So
I got to be honest, it was the one I was less excited for, and it will, like, when I say less excited, it's really excited. And it ended up being the one I like more of the two. Of the two characters.
I liked it a lot more than the other one myself, but I was actually more excited for it though, because I love the characters from that. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But episode 4 through 6 threw me through one hell of a loop.
Yeah.
Arcs I did not see happening, man.
No, not at all. And I mean, Barriss.
I did not think we were going to see Barriss show up in the show again. I thought that was like done and over with, and we saw in the previews it was going to be here. I was like, oh, okay, so we get a close on this now.
Yeah.
But we get that opening, and it's the Order 66 flashback. Filoni loves hitting us with those.
Emotional damage.
And she's in prison.
Trauma.
Yes, and she's in prison there, and the clones come up and like, just be glad you're not a Jedi anymore, and you know what's happening right then and there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then shortly after, fourth sister shows up and recruits her, and it has to be a little bit of a time jump there, just because the Inquisitors weren't made overnight.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
But I don't think it was a huge gap, because we get into that, and then right after that they go to Nur and Fortress Inquisitorius being built up, and I'm thinking it had to be within that like first year, really, of the Empire being built.
It's. I was thinking about this a lot, probably too much, because if you think about the Vader comics that take place between between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, the Inquisitors fairly early, and Vader fucking hates them.
I hate them.
I didn't know they were that early.
Yeah, you mean like fairly early is relative. They don't give you a timeline. So I wonder if this happens like kind of. It might have been a first wave of Inquisitors, like prior to. Prior to the ones we know, because
we see Barriss call her Lynn still, which we learned Fourth Sister's name, so we know this is before that's like fully taken over. So it is very early in.
I mean, I've
That's
always
for sure.
called her Lynn. We've always called her Lynn. She and I are very close, but she's fourth sister to most other. No, but yeah, I mean, so very close. And I think also though that's a good call because you see that Inquisitor who people call like the fake sixth brother,
Hmm.
because he's like canon. That Inquisitor that Ahsoka defeated is he's one way in the Tales of the Jedi and another way in the comics and in the Ahsoka book where she kills her first Inquisitor. And Marak. Right, which
Yep.
speaking of nice touch with Marak, because everybody was so speculating after the Ahsoka trailer that Marak was Barriss.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely had to have been a little bit early on, which makes it interesting because Marak, Green Fart Cloud himself, he's there. So there's a lot that could have happened. And the battle with the, sixth brother, whatever you want to call him, he's been in it now again. So maybe he'll get a name and they'll fit. They've done a good job of not retconning too hard. So I would assume that's its own Inquisitor, or maybe Ahsoka fought too, and she didn't think to take that guy's crystals or whatever at that time. So I'm going to give them that on that. But it was a nice touch because it was showing you Inquisitors other than the Grand Inquisitor and the fourth sister you have not seen. So, and it also makes me wonder the rankings, right? Was Lynn the first sister, the second sister, or whatever originally? She got moved back to fourth because of different things that happened. Was she training simultaneously with the two other sisters?
The same thing because I was really hoping we would get to see Trilla in it, honestly, because that like her character arc in like how everything happens in Fallen Order is still one of my favorite stories. Fallen Order itself is probably my top
Watch the
favorite stories.
Fantastic stuff.
Dude,
yeah,
seriously, if you haven't played it, it's top tier. But but regardless, that first episode where we see them kind of start to train and they get into that final fight scene where she fights the I think it's a Bothan, and she embraces that dark side and just snaps him and throws him down the pit like that. It was gnarly and it was like
it was awesome.
it was dark and it was awesome and it kind of it started in a direction where I was like, oh, this is gonna go pretty gnarly, and we learned very shortly on the very next episode that's not actually going to happen.
which I think was very true to the character.
Yes.
She betrayed Ahsoka and the Order because she felt betrayed by the Order, right?
Yes.
Like she's a person of principle.
Yes.
Right? And in her mind, this is wrong. And there's a lot of anger and hate, but she was never, I don't think she was ever a bad guy. I think she was a misguided character. And I think that she thought she was doing what she needed to do. And I think that she was never like, we should kill everybody, we should kill the Jedi. She was probably one of the first to be like, this is pretty corrupt and shitty, other than like Qui-Gon who was getting there.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Dooku, obviously, and I don't know that she ever would have fully gone over. So when she really, she did okay, these people get me, right? Fuck the Jedi. And then she sees the fourth sister kill a village of people, or like a small area of people. She goes hard. And then she sees the little girl and she kind of realizes, like, maybe I'm not a Jedi, but maybe I'm not on the dark side either. Maybe I'm, I think there's an interesting thing. There was an interview with Freddie Prinze Jr. where he talks about, like, he studied under Filoni, studied under Lucas. There's no such thing as a gray Jedi. You're dark or you're light. I don't really think of it as a gray Jedi. I think of it as somebody like a Qui-Gon, right? Like everybody has a capacity for good and a capacity for evil. Finding the balance is what being a Jedi is versus totally being chased or totally being, a demon run wild. There's a middle. And I think that she's a character, and we'll talk about it in the third episode, she's kind of learned the middle. And I think this was the beginning because she hated going to the far left, if you want to know political terms, and she hated going to the far right. So, she's a little bit more in the center. And I think that moment for her as a character, she's a character. She was somebody who was looking for direction, looking for someone to tell her what to do, or when she took matters into her own hands, it was misguided, right? And it didn't really pan out. And I think that might have been for her as a character. It's not her framing Ahsoka and going to jail. It's her finally seeing, like, I'm not all bad and I'm not all good, and this is really bad, and this is what it is. And that helps to turn her and help her grow as a person and as a character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That scene where, she kind of, where they find that the Jedi on top of the mountain and she says that line, well, there's one left for you to face or whatever it was. I was like, I thought that was bad. That was a sick line drop. So
100%. And it was, that was literally and I like the conflict in Lynn.
Yeah.
As a character, because remember what the Inquisitors really did was find Jedi who were wayward and disillusioned. or Jedis that just didn't want to die, which is a natural reaction, and preyed upon that fear or that anger or whatever to bring them over to the dark side to hunt their own. Yes. So we've seen a lot of characters that are Inquisitors that kind of, they leaned in hard. Mm-hmm. And they're probably, and there were Inquisitors maybe in the comics that, like, they weren't all in or all out. Some of them were all in, but it wasn't even to be on the dark side. It was because they were a fucking weasel. You know what I mean? In general, like, it's not a good person, or, bully. That's the sixth brother. There were ones that were, Jedi. There was the blind Jedi. I think he's like 11th brother that uses like 2 lightsabers instead of a dual lightsaber. His thing had more to do with something that happened with Windu. Like, they're all there for their own reasons. Yeah. And they're not just as cut. It's really beautifully written because they're none of them in any of it. Outside of, like, when we first met the Inquisitors, are as cut and dry as, like, I defected or fuck the Jedi. Like, there's a lot more to them, which makes them more nuanced and more easily swayed in either direction, and also within themselves that conflict.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking of conflict, going into that last episode, we see the family bring the kid up there because they realize the Inquisitors are hunting the kid. And it gets into the caves there. That was a claustrophobic ass scene. I wouldn't consider myself claustrophobic, but sometimes that stuff gets a little bit too wild, and the camera bouncing around angles like that.
Did a good job.
It did a really good job. The visuals of that was amazing. And then it gets into the where she stabs her just because she's freaking out, basically. And it was just like, I was like it wasn't the route I expected. And then we see her, Barris speak to Fourth Sister, and she kind of turns it there. She leaves that Inquisitor saber behind. She's like, I'm gonna get you out of here.
Yeah, and I think what was very cool about that, and I thought, we don't know where that's going to end and where that may go at some point, but what I thought was really good about that was, if she had killed her, Barris's disillusionment with the Jedi Order and everything is they're supposed to help people, and they're caught up in all these politics. And when you find her again, that is exactly what she's doing. She's helping people. So this lost cause in the Fourth Sister, this who is Lynn, where do they start, where do they stop? If she had killed Barris died helping her try to get out of the cave, which is the position she put herself into. And on top of that, either way, that might have swayed the Fourth Sister. So even if Barris had died, she might have died saving someone. And I think that was a really nice touch. And I think that, like, there may be more story with both of them to be told. And I love that.
I would like to see more. I think there's a lot that can be done there still. There's a lot that can be done there still. Yeah. They left that story very open, and I'm hoping that might kind of tie into, maybe, because they got to be doing more animated series. We just don't really know what yet. Yeah. So I'm hoping these things kind of start tying in together for the new series and everything. So, but
they always do.
Yeah, but overall,
man, are built on hope.
Yes. But overall, man, the 6 episodes we got for that, I loved it. It was a great short series. I loved it. I can't say a bad thing about it. I'm not gonna, I don't know. We can give it ratings if we want, but it's not like we did the Bad Batch. Really, just overall, it was a great fucking series.
8.5 for me, maybe a 9. Depends.
Yeah, I'm right there. Like, I think for the first time, we actually agree.
Yeah, it was good. Well, we usually agree on how good something is, just how good or how very good it is. But yeah, no, I'll give it an 8.5. I really liked it. I really was really good. It was. Just,
I thought so too.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, very good. So,
all right.
But in addition to that, on May the 4th, we had some amazing Black Series and Vintage Collection drops.
We did,
and I know you pre-ordered this shit like a mother. So, the highlight the big ones, and we'll throw them up here on the screen and everything so folks can see these. The first one that was a big one was the Phantom Menace, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul.
First one I got. I love me some Maul.
I know you do. And
new body mold, you say?
I saw that, and so they're really going to more of these big packs like this now. Which I don't know. I feel kind of a certain way. I like getting the single packs sometimes a little bit because I just like that one here, one there type thing. But the that big pack, it is really nice. I will say that
Yeah.
much.
The multi-packs don't bother me. I know for some people, like, I'm waiting for them I paid for the Fallen Order 3-pack. In theory, Amazon's kind of messing with my money a little bit there, but I'll get it. I'll get it. I know I have some friends that were annoyed about the second sister in that pack, and they're going to sell her, and that's fine. But to me, I think a lot of these multi-packs, the stuff we're seeing in multi-pack release, are figures they would not have necessarily gotten out or feel would have sold, quite as well had there not been another figure, packed in. With that said, I think what drives a lot of that is Lucasfilm and what Hasbro. So Lucasfilm was like, we need you to do Phantom Menace. They've read that everybody loves that Maul from the Phantom Menace. How do we get a new Maul in? They look at like what's going on and the way that, and honestly speaking, I love the actual sculpts on the most recent Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, but I'll take them robes. You know what I mean? I'll take that little cinema scene moment.
This new pack for somebody like you who does the photography stuff with it too. This is prime. Like I can see you. I already know you're going to be going to try to make the reactor core type thing and get your thing set up like that. So
it's the better faces, man. That's what I'm after. And I mean, man, a better posable Maul. I'll take any Maul any day. You're going to learn that soon. But
speaking of posability, the next ones we're going to get into are dog shit for posability, but. Me as an inbox collector, that doesn't matter much. So I love the vintage collection stuff. Those are the 3.75 inch ones, and they're coming out with more of these bigger pack releases. And they're releasing a Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, a 6-pack with 3 of each. Attack of the Clones having Mace Windu, Jango Fett, and Padme, which is pretty sick. The Jango Fett I'm really excited about. And then on the Revenge of the Sith side, they got Anakin, Grievous, and a Phase 2 clone trooper. The Anakin and the Grievous particularly, I'm super excited for that one. Details on these aren't quite as great as like regular vintage collection because it's the retro ones. But they're still really cool. Still pretty excited about it.
I love the retro collection. If I was going to go back to collect a different type of figure, I think I would probably go back to retro collection and start picking those up.
I got a fair amount of those myself.
Yeah, for me, the vintage collection toys, they're fine. I think I'm just over that 4-inch size figure. I've had the posability of the 6-inch. If I'm going to go smaller, I would go that kind of 4 points of articulation or 5 points of articulation. The old school. But those packs looked awesome to me. I would snag them if I was collecting them for sure. Yeah. As an inbox, I think for you, it's just like having them. And, you love those characters. But for me, like, I would want all those characters if I bought retro anyway. So I think they're a great way to get a multi-pack of figures.
Absolutely. And then getting into more multi-packs, we had the Yoda and the Gree 2-pack.
Talk about a hotly contested load of shit. You got probably the best version of Yoda you're ever going to get. You can use them in multiple ways. You can do a battle. And then Gree, it's the comic version in Phase 2 helmet with Phase 1 body.
I don't know why
Here's the deal. You only
saw him.
Yeah. You only saw him in camo on Revenge of the Sith. Maybe he slathered himself up before the battle on Kashyyyk, right? Like, to me, I was like, it's a Gree. It looks awesome. I understand the desire for accuracy. I really do.
And so the thing is if you look, like, even on Battlefront 2, they had the camos like that, where it was the 41st Battalion, and then like the 41st Ranger Battalion was the one who had the camo, and he was the commander of the 41st. So I mean, he could go either way.
Yeah, it depends which division he's working with that day. I dress up for client meetings. I dress down when nobody's in the office. I don't, you know what I mean? Like to me, it's a weird thing, we run a toy group. It's a weird thing because maybe I'm a person that's too excited for everything and too happy, but sometimes there's a little element of like being excited. And it's like, everybody kind of fucked up a free lunch on that one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not a free lunch. You got to pay for it. I get that, but you got your Yoda and I'm excited. I'll take a clone at any goddamn paint shop.
Oh, dude, I don't care. I don't care. I'll take them all.
100%. So that Yoda is prime example of what they can do.
This is the same concept we've had talked about with the movies as it is to the action figures. Star Wars fans are their own worst enemies.
100%. It's like Star Wars fans' immediate reaction to everything is, I don't like it. And
brother, what's that?
You know what? It's funny because that's how a lot of people felt about the prequels. Now, everybody loves the prequels. You've got Clone Wars and everything. A lot of people feel that way about the sequels. I rewatched the sequels this weekend. I do all the movies on the High Holy Days. I enjoy them more with every time that I watch them because I'm further away from it. And I think there's an element of like, I get that everybody hates it. There's things I would do differently. It's Star Wars. I like it. It's the sacred texts. I understand how everybody feels that way. But for me, maybe it's less sacred. I'm just like, all right, well, this happened. I can either find the things I enjoy about it or say it never happened, but I'm not going to let it bother me. And I think that happens a lot with the toys as well. Just don't buy it. I know you want to figure that character. I'm sorry it didn't meet your expectations. It's a bummer, but there's a lot of worse things going on in the world.
But I think the one thing we all agreed on, and I know this is the one I was the most excited for, very first Revenge of the Sith mural line, Palpatine. I am so stoked for this one.
Unlimited power.
Dude, we have been waiting for that Revenge of the Sith line to start in the mural collection for years now. For fucking years.
Yeah, and it's that figure was, look at that figure and look at the Yoda figure where some of this stuff may be headed, and I want an updated Revenge of the Sith Anakin and Obi-Wan so badly. Those two figures.
I think we're gonna start getting those because they got the re-releases coming out.
Yeah. So whack.
I'm hoping those start getting re-released, like the Anakin, like the archive Anakin and stuff like that. Yeah. Especially because they're re-releasing like Ahsoka, Rex, and a bunch of the other ones. So I'm really hoping we see those ones get released. But overall, I thought all the releases we had this week were pretty sick. I'm very excited to get these in the future. But these are what's in the future. Let's focus on the now. And I know we both got some fun stuff to show off, man, right?
Yeah, you want to go first? I feel like I go first last time.
I will.
You are. Okay, go.
So I am still riding off of my Phantom Menace high. I went to see Phantom Menace last week, and it was back in theaters, and it was great. I took my daughter. It was her first movie, actually, and I was super excited about that. We didn't make it all the way through the movie, unfortunately, because she's 4 years old, and that just is a long movie for a 4-year-old. But nonetheless, still riding the high from Phantom Menace, which is what this bad boy right here. So that is...
Oh, Misa think that cool.
Yeah, so...
Misa going to hurt you, sir.
So this is one that, like, you know, it's nothing rare, it's nothing crazy, but it is actually signed by Ahmed Best. I got this signed by him at Rhode Island Comic-Con back probably about like 2 or 3 years ago now. And looking back on it too was actually really crazy because this was right before he was in The Mandalorian when he made his return for that.
And back.
And so the crazy thing is like, I never really caught what it was until afterwards. His banner that he had hanging at his table, it had him as Keller and Beck, but nobody knew who that was yet.
Yeah.
So like it had the photo of him. Like, did he play? I was like, did he play?
Well, he was in that game show. He was in that. It's like that was the character he was in the game show, and they brought that.
I don't even remember that.
There was like a kid's like it was like Jedi Double Dare at the beginning of Disney Plus, and he was like the headmaster of the Jedi school, and I'm best played this Jedi, but it was like a real like live action kids game show. Basically.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know that in order for us to keep up with canon, we had to watch Jedi Double Dare, but for Jedi Nuts. But yeah,
love this thing. I still got to get a case for it and everything like that. Actually, when I did this, our boy Mark, I got about 3 of these signed because I got one signed for him, got mine signed, and got another one signed. But yeah, loved it. Honestly, so happy I met Ahmed Best, one of the nicest, most genuine people I've met at the conventions.
Yeah, so glad he's getting his due. You know,
dude, and I'll tell you what, speaking of that, we'll get back into the collector's corner. I've been talking with a lot of people lately, man. I'm really hoping Jake Lloyd gets his due once his mental health and everything gets there, because he deserves it.
Yeah, Hayden Christensen and Ahmed Best have gotten their arc. Let's get Jake something good.
Yeah,
but yeah,
100%, man.
Sure.
So,
all right, well, my turn.
But I know you got something sick for us.
So one of my closest friends on May the 4th, he's getting rid of a lot of his collection. He's selling some stuff, but he's been giving me a few things here and there for free. This I could not have imagined he would give me. It's my first collectible from this line, and hopefully my last because they're expensive. But he got me a Hot Toys Darth Maul from Solo. I've never even seen a Hot Toy up close. So this is insane.
Neither have I.
It's got different hands. It comes with this throne that, Kira sees him on. And the coolest thing about these, if I can get this in there, is, we think about Maul's legs, like his robot legs. You think of his robot legs as like the cartoon version, but you look at the detail. Try to get this on camera. These, it really shows you what that would look like if it was real. And I think they do a lot of these off the modeling and the props and stuff that they did in the concept art. So I mean, it's beautiful. And you look at the face and the Ray Park visage there, portrait, if you will.
Yeah.
It's awesome, and it's so funny. I still can never get used to seeing Ray Park as Darth Maul anymore because
Yeah.
Whitwer and Filoni, that's my Maul kind of.
Dude, I kind of have that same feeling sometimes.
Yeah, the voice and all that. When I watch the movie, I'm like, it should be more like this. But yeah, no, I definitely. It's a cool figure and a great present from a dear friend of mine. He was one of the guys that, he and my wife really conspired to push me into photography with toys. He's on Instagram as Crispy SBS, but he does not post as much anymore. And he's left Star Wars a little more for some of the smaller miniature painting and all that. But a fantastic guy, my oldest friend since I was 4. And what a beautiful May the 4th present. I had about 12 people here, and boy, did he walk in with the piece de resistance for me to keep. And I got a beautiful painted Mandalorian portrait from a friend that he did for me of the
nice,
of the Mudhorn, the Mythosaur on my wall over there. I'll bring that out at some point. My good buddy Brian, who we call Brylo Ren. Great dudes. Got me a lot of great presents, but this was also very touching.
Nice. Yeah, I actually May the 4th. I actually took my son to May the 4th party. They had costume contests, everything like that.
Nice.
It was my first time I'd ever taken my son to anything like that, and your boy came in first place for best overall costume with my Nihilus.
Oh, Nihilus?
Yeah, so I'll drop a photo below of what it was like and everything like that. But yeah, there was a few people there in costumes and stuff, but you could tell it wasn't really legit stuff. And I didn't put my stuff on. So for those of you who don't know, I live in Florida and it's hot as hell here already. So I didn't put my stuff on until after I'd been there for a little bit because it's really freaking warm in that thing. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go get changed. I went changed, came back, and it was one of those things where the record screeched when I walked in the room almost. So because everybody just looked over what the fuck?
yeah. Forget about Dadalorian, your dad Nihilus. But yeah.
Daddy Nihilus,
Planet Eater.
Yeah, man. So, but it was a good time. Like I said, I'll drop a photo below. It was a really, really good time. So
it looked awesome, my friend.
Yeah. So, but brother, we had a recommendation online.
We did
probably
have a recommendation online. Yeah, it might have been somebody in this very room of my apartment right now.
It might
had
be
a hot take of her own after a few 100 glasses of wine with me on May the 4th. She came to a revelation.
And what is that revelation?
That Luke Skywalker sucks.
It wasn't he sucked. Didn't say he sucked. He said he was whiny.
He was whiny. She said,
No. The fuck you mean? No.
We went through a whole thing. I'll lay it out for you. We were talking about how people think that Rey is the worst character in Star Wars, and she's a Mary Sue. We started coming up with reasons why. Well, if you really think about it, and I love Luke. That Luke, we felt until The Last Jedi, and I love Luke, he's a Mary Sue. I mean, he meets his karate teacher 30 seconds after. I don't agree with Rey, though, is what I'm saying, if you're going to go by those principles. And I love Luke, that's what I'm saying, but it is fun to muse on these things. And you think about it, right? He's like a farm boy playing with spaceships in his garage. Yeah. He wants to go to Toshi Station. He meets his karate instructor, come Jedi Master, right? Who is like, this is the Force. Then he's on a spaceship with Han Solo, who doesn't believe in the Force, and a thing he's known about for all of 36 hours. And he's like, you don't believe in the Force? You didn't know what the fuck it was 2 days ago, brother. And then
Ben had been there his whole life.
Yeah, just his whole life, just creepily watching him through binoculars. And then, he blows up the Death Star by using the Force out of nowhere, right? But what I will say about that, then you get to that, and then his whiny years. I want to be a Jedi, but I don't want to go to school for it. That type of thing, And then you kind of get, I liked him in Return of the Jedi. I like him in all of them, but then Return of the Jedi kind of accepts the mantle, a little bit more badass. But he is a whiny character. He is a character that has had a lot handed to him. Go on.
I was going to say, I got a caveat to that. So I agree.
I thought we're both caveating. I do like him. I do like him, commenters. I do like him.
No, no, not even that. So, I'm going to say this. In New Hope and Empire, he was that. He was whiny. It was because he was immature throughout that. I think in that he was 8. He was supposed to be 18 years old, still growing up and stuff. So, yeah, he was, a whiny kid at that point. Come to Return, though, and that is where we see him different, though. He in that one, the way Mark Hamill especially portrayed it, he holds himself differently. He acts differently. It's a very different version of him that we see. And I think that is I think that is where the change is, in my
Right.
opinion, at least.
But I will say this: I literally just said that before you said it. If you really go back through the canon, he sort of does the DIY Jedi school. He's with Yoda for like 8 weeks, which is crazy that he was like on like Dagobah for like 2 months. They don't really make that clear in the movies, but he was there for a while.
They don't.
And then he kind of did DIY Jedi school, and if you read the comics, you kind of see how it's happening. He's still pretty whiny up until at least a couple months before Jedi, right?
Yeah.
And then this is how a Jedi acts, and like it's like he's kind of whiny, but at the same time, I think for me, if you parallel that with him and Rey, right, and people calling her Mary Sue, if you lay it out on the track, right, and we step away from the Luke element of all, I think for me it's more or less in liking what you want to like and not liking what you don't want to like in a way that you're leaning into something. I know that sounds like, no shit, you like what you want to like and you don't like what you don't like. But if you think about it, like Luke established as a great pilot, Obi-Wan calls that out. He can run the trenches. He's bagged womp rats. He can make that haul. Well, then, Obi-Wan speaks to him through the Force. The Force has willed this, right? Rey, opening of the movie, scavenger, picking apart ships, learning mechanics, figuring that out to get scrap out, all of those different things. Shows she knows how to defend herself when she's fighting those guys on the First Order on Jakku when she runs into Finn, right? Now she gets in the Falcon. She's not a great pilot. She's flopping around everywhere, but you've got the similar thing to Luke with the torpedoes. The Force is willing something to happen here, right? And then at the same time, she's kind of fumbling around and feeling for it, but she knows all the parts that go in the ship. The reason is she's been picking up scrap and selling it to Unkar Plutt, right? Then you go to the fight with Kylo. He has been shot by a bowcaster, which we never saw its full effect in movies. If you strap that thing to a Star Destroyer, you don't need the Death Star. He took it you got a shot to the ribs and took a fucking knee like a baller, right? And that's a whiny guy, whiny baller. He had just killed his father. So like, as Snoke says in Revenge of the Last Jedi, split to his bone, right? So her, between having the self-defense experience from probably fending off rapists on Jakku, right? Probably. And like all those survivor skills, fighting this guy who'd been shot by what is essentially a nuclear missile, and then also just killed his own dad and wasn't sure he wanted to. She's not a Mary Sue. There was a lot of things stacked in her favor based on the circumstance of her when that fight. So when you start talking about her versus Luke, the interesting part to me was less Luke's not that great of a character or Luke's whiny. It's that we're picking the thing we like and the thing that's other that people can't project themselves onto with Rey and saying we don't like Rey. So it became almost like an allegory for seeing Star Wars through the eyes of the person in the version of Star Wars they saw for the first time. And nobody's as whiny as Anakin. Let's just put that out there.
I love him. But yeah, I don't think I can disagree with that.
Yeah.
This is unfair.
Not even fun on drugs.
No. But yeah, I don't disagree with what the concept was that he was whiny. I do think he grows out of it though. So that's my take on it.
I think his arc in Last Jedi, I love it. I think it totally defied convention that he makes a comment about stepping outside with a light sword and beating everybody, and people are like, that's not Luke, that's not a Jedi. Oh, yeah, because no Jedi in any of the other movies had an extreme amount of hubris that led to their total downfall, and then their total, disillusionment with society, and then when it hit on a weird planet and didn't talk to anybody and thought on it for a really long time. And there's lots there. I think there could be more. We can get into so let's get a sequels episode because I got fucking thoughts, brother. And
we'll get into that. We're getting pressed for time already. So
wait, just give me 20 more minutes.
This hot take can go on for another hour, but we're not gonna have that go. But to wrap this week's show up, what we need to do is kind of get into our giveaway that we're doing. So what we're gonna be doing is. Yes. So we partnered up with Gory Comics, which is a great apparel company, and they gave us a bunch of decals, and I'm actually going to show them to you guys right here. So we got the Wounded Anakin and the Forsaken one, i.e. Maul.
I want that.
Yeah, well, don't worry, I'm sending you some too. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually be giving one of each of those away to one of the followers who comments on our posts that we do every single week on our Instagram or our TikTok. And so what we're going to do is when you comment on there, we'll take a name, put it in the spin and everything like that. So, but anyway, so we had that start yesterday, and our winner, we got him. So we want to say congratulations to Black Series Natural Light. Much like yourself, brother, looks like he's a photographer.
Dude, that's my homie.
Yeah, oh, no shit. Okay.
I know. I did not know. By the way, for the record, I did not know that he won, but I've done collaborations with him. We were just talking about him last night.
I did the spin right before this on my computer. Otherwise, I would show it. But yeah, no. He won. So Black Series Natural Light. We're going to be going ahead. We'll send these out to you. We'll shoot you a DM after the episode gets posted up on YouTube, TikTok, and everything like that. So we'll get that taken care of for you. But congratulations. Thank you for following us and Gory Comics. And you guys can go check out the great lineup of apparel on gorycomics.com or at Gory Comics on Instagram. Great company, love their products. So, but with the giveaway, brother, I think that right there wraps us about up. So for those of you watching today, we just want to say thank you again for joining us. And you can follow us on Instagram at SithHappens_Star Wars Podcast, or you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Just look up Sith Happens -a Star Wars Podcast, or just look up our link tree on our Instagram. So, Matty, my boy, any final words for us?
Just that this is your man, Black Series Daily Desk on Instagram, signing off and saying, as always, may the Force be with you.
And this is the Dadalorian saying, this is the way.